A young boy, found lifeless in a cardboard box. No name, no family, no answers. The cold wind of February 1957 swept through a quiet stretch of Fox Chase, Philadelphia, carrying with it a silence that would echo for more than 6 decades. His tiny body was discovered wrapped in a plaid blanket, carefully placed inside a discarded box meant for a baby's bassinet. But there was no baby, no mother, no trace of who he was. Just a small boy, abandoned in the woods, as if the world had forgotten him before it ever truly knew he existed. For over 60 years, he was known only as the boy in the box, a mystery buried in heartbreak and silence. Detectives, journalists, and strangers haunted by compassion called him America's unknown child. His story became a ghost in the city's history, whispered in police halls, revisited in television specials, reopened by those who couldn't stand the thought of a child without a name. They searched for clues in his tiny face, in the worn blanket, in the box that had carried him to his final resting place. But time was merciless. Leads went cold. Witnesses faded into the past. Generations grew up and moved on, while his grave remained. A small, lonely headstone that read, America's unknown child. People left flowers. Some prayed. Others wept for a child they never met, because somehow, everyone felt the same ache, the injustice of a story that ended before it began. Then, decades later, when most had stopped asking, science found its way into the mystery. Advances in DNA testing gave detectives new hope. A match, faint at first, then unmistakable, pulled the story of the boy in the box back into the light. His name was finally spoken, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. After 65 years of silence, the world could finally call him by his name. But with that name came more questions. Who was Joseph? What happened to him? And why, after all this time, does the truth still feel just out of reach? The discovery gave him an identity, but not justice. The answers were still hidden in the same woods that once kept his secret. The story of the boy in the box is not just about tragedy. It's about persistence, compassion, and the haunting reminder that even after decades, some mysteries refuse to rest. This is the story of a little boy whose silence spoke louder than anyone could imagine. And even now, as new evidence emerges, one question still lingers in the cold air of memory. Has the mystery finally been solved? Or is it just another heartbreaking story America will never forget? It was a cold, gray afternoon, February 25, 1957, when a young man wandered into a quiet stretch of woods in the Fox Chase neighborhood of Philadelphia. The trees stood bare, their skeletal branches reaching into a colorless sky. The wind was sharp, biting through his coat, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. He was checking his animal traps, just as he had done countless times before. But that day, he found something different, something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. There, half hidden in the brush, lay a large cardboard box. It looked ordinary enough, the kind used to ship baby bassinets. Torn, weather-stained, the lid slightly loose. The man hesitated, then stepped closer. He pulled the flaps apart. Inside was a blanket, faded, plaid, neatly folded, and wrapped within it, the small, fragile body of a little boy. He froze. Time stopped. The boy's pale face looked peaceful at first, as if he might have simply fallen asleep. But as the man leaned closer, the truth became unbearable. The child's tiny frame was bruised. His hair had been crudely cut, some say even shaved unevenly. His eyes were closed, his lips still soft, but his body told the story of suffering, of hunger, neglect, and pain no child should ever know. Panicked, the man stumbled back, ran to report what he had found. Within hours, the quiet woods of Fox Chase were filled with police, detectives, and curious onlookers who could hardly believe what they were seeing. Philadelphia had seen tragedy before, but nothing like this. Nothing so senseless. The boy was estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old. He weighed barely 30 pounds. There were small scars on his body, evidence of abuse, old wounds that had healed, and new ones that hadn't. His hands were clean, his nails trimmed, as if someone had tried to care for him, or perhaps prepare him, even in death. Detectives combed the area for evidence. They searched the ground for footprints, tire tracks, anything that could tell them who had left the child there. But there was nothing. Just the box, the blanket, and the cold earth that had kept his secret. Fingerprints were taken, but there were no matches. His photograph was distributed across Pennsylvania and beyond, in newspapers, on posters, in police stations. His face, small, angelic, haunting, stared out from black and white pages under the headline. Who is this boy? Every missing child report across the country was checked. None fit. No mother called. No father claimed him. The city began to mourn a child whose name no one knew. He became the boy in the box. For investigators, it was one of the most heartbreaking cases they had ever seen. One detective later said, "It wasn't just murder. It was sadness, pure sadness." Police officers, hardened by years on the job, found themselves leaving the scene in tears. The investigation began with urgency and heartbreak. Within days of the discovery, the Philadelphia Police Department launched one of the largest manhunts in the city's history. They traced the box to a local department store, followed every lead, chased every rumor. But nothing, not a single clue, brought them closer to his name. Desperate, police even took the unusual step of displaying the boy's body publicly at the city morgue. They hoped someone would recognize him. People came, some wept, some prayed, but no one claimed him. Then came theories. One of the strongest centered around a nearby foster home, a quiet property less than 2 miles from where the body was found. Inside, detectives noticed chilling coincidences, a blanket matching the one from the crime scene, hair clippers like those that could have produced his uneven haircut, whispers from neighbors about strange noises and crying at night. The owner denied everything. No children were missing, he said. The blanket? Common. The haircut? Coincidence. But suspicions lingered. The foster home theory became one of the most enduring leads, haunting investigators for decades, a shadow of truth that could never quite be proven. Years turned into decades. The case faded, then returned, like a ghost that refused to rest. In 2002, a woman known only as M came forward with a shocking confession. She claimed her abusive mother had bought a little boy, that he had lived with them, been beaten, and one night, killed in a fit of rage. According to her, she and her mother wrapped the child in a blanket, placed him in a box, and left him in the woods. Her story matched countless details of the case: the blanket, the box, even the boy's appearance. For a time, detectives believed they had found the truth. But her story began to collapse under scrutiny. No records, no witnesses, no proof. Some said trauma had blurred her memories, others weren't so sure. Still, her words rekindled the investigation, and for the first time in years, the world remembered the boy in the box. Then came the breakthrough no one expected. In 2022, through the power of forensic genealogy, science reached back across time and whispered the boy's name: Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Born in 1953, lost in 1957, and finally found 65 years later. On December 8, 2022, the Philadelphia Police Department made the announcement that brought the world to tears. The boy in the box has a name. His name is Joseph Augustus Zarelli. For many, it was a moment of closure. For others, it raised more questions. If Joseph had a family, why didn't anyone report him missing? How could a child vanish so completely? Who hurt him and why? Even now, no one knows for sure. The people who might have held those answers are gone or silent. The case remains open. Today, Joseph rests beneath a new headstone at Ivy Hill Cemetery. The same grave that once bore the words "America's Unknown Child" now reads, Joseph Augustus Zarelli, America's unknown child, no longer unknown. Detectives, journalists, and strangers stood by his grave, some in tears, others in reverent silence. The name carved in stone was more than an identity. It was a promise that he would never be forgotten again. Because Joseph's story is not only about tragedy, it's about remembrance. It reminds us that every child matters. That no one, no matter how small, how lost, or how forgotten, should ever disappear into silence. He was nameless for 65 years, yet he was never truly forgotten. The boy in the box may have been found, but his story still whispers through time, asking one final, heartbreaking question. How could a child vanish so completely and be unseen for so long? And perhaps, in remembering Joseph, we ensure that no other child will ever be lost in silence again. Studio Microphone, if stories like this move you, if you believe every mystery deserves a voice, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps us keep these forgotten stories alive, one case at a time.